And with this exercise, you take in a deep breath and you look surprised, so you go, and then you exhale and you can go like this. And we're going to do it all together. And did you notice how when we do these things together, it releases some joy?
Yeah.
Because the laughter is apparent. So, and the whole thing about belonging, the whole thing about joy is it comes through everything. So if you're ready, we'll do it 4 times. Take a breath and go. It's hard to look surprised. One more time. Great job. Oh, someone should walk out.
What was that?
Okay, there's something about when we do the crossing of the hands, there's something in our body that connects. It's kind of briefly, it connects right in left brain.
Yeah, it's crossing midline.
Yeah, you're
Yeah, when
right.
would you use that?
When you're afraid, when you're not in a crowd. Unless you want to start a conversation.
We would start a new type of way. When you're on
Just, could you see the worship team and the pastors watching us go? But I will share this. When I taught this in another class, there was a woman in the class who was really afraid of flying alone by herself. And she had reason to be, because she was flying in the 70s and her plane was hijacked to Cuba. So the fear was legitimate, but she had a trip coming up and no one could go with her. And we taught her the tapping thing. So she did it in the airport, and she said, I flew and I wasn't afraid. Wow. So it worked, so I don't mind looking ridiculous and teaching it when it works and it helps. So we did have a volunteer, and if Denise would come on up, and Tracy is going to lead, and Sarah's going to be the intercessory person.
So we're going to be practicing just asking the Lord about a memory that Denise shared that she felt was, I don't know, something you've kind of had on your mind through the years that you're like, this still feels a little uncomfortable. I've had some healing, but maybe I'd like to ask the Lord a little more about it today. You want to share a little bit about what it is?
Yeah.
So I have used this memory to talk about how important it is that teachers not speak, not break the confidence of students, right? When I was in 6th grade, I went to, I can't remember the name right now, it escapes me, but I went to school, the neighborhood school, and I was very good in literary and reading and all that, but I wasn't as good as math. And so people were very grade conscious, you know, like, what grade level are you? And so I was always maybe grade level, maybe a little bit before, a little bit lower in math, but always excelled in reading and stuff like that. And so one day I did really well on my test, my math test in 6th grade. And I had gone to school that day feeling a little confident because I had decided to let my hair be out in a natural. Back in that day, naturals were in. And I had very, very long hair, so my natural was like this, but it wasn't thick enough to. So I just remember myself bouncing up, feeling like I'd come to school, you know, and I'm free, my hair is free. But then I walked up the stairs and I see this teacher, a male teacher, and I don't even remember to this day who he was in my life and why I felt like I needed to share this with him. But I had gotten my results and I had gotten an A on my math test. And I went up and I said, Mr. So-and-so, I got an A on my math test, because I was headed into class. And he looked and he said, you? And it wasn't like, you did it. It was like, you? And I remember that was all the exchange, but I can see myself walking in the classroom being like I'm supposed to, I think I got something that I wasn't supposed to get. And so I've shared that with people before as an example of how important the words of a teacher are to a kid, but I don't know that I processed it in terms of how it, I mean, I know it impacted me, but I don't know that I've done it to that degree. And even as I was coming up, and then going back with this confidence thing as I'm prepping this sort of, I'm prepping something for a teacher that's having some problems with their students, and I'm gonna try to help. And I thought about that confidence, that the kids need to feel competent. We need to be able to say things that encourage their sense of competence and even give them assignments that they can do so that they can build up that. And that impacts the next stage of fidelity and loyalty and citizenship and feelings of belonging. So, yeah, and I think right now I've been craving, can I share that part? Craving sugar, so much and so that I put on clothes, put on street clothes yesterday and went out and got a thing of cheesecake, which I love cheesecake, as some of you know. And because I have 3 huge things on my plate that I need to get done. And so as you all were sharing today, it made me think that this notion of confidence and competence is different. And so, yeah. And maybe that was back in the day when I needed to feel competent. It's funny because now with the stuff that I'm studying now, it makes me go back to that and say, hey, because that memory comes up I have never forgotten it. That's one of the memories that I have never forgotten. And it could be, I thought, because I work with kids and I want to find stories that encourage them. So I've always kind of deflected and said, that's for the kids and this is a lesson, but
Yeah. So let's just start by asking the Lord. First I'm just going to stop and pray and just kind of have us just kind of get connected with the Lord. So Lord, we just thank you for your presence. We thank you for Denise. We thank you that you've been with her from the womb and you've been by her side in all these memories and all these times in her life. We just ask that you would speak to her today, what you're wanting her to know. And just ask that she would just feel your presence right now and connected to you. And Lord, I just ask that you would show Denise what you want her to know about this memory today. Where your presence was with her. You have any thoughts? I was thinking about asking if there was a lie you believed, but you might already have your own thoughts.
Well, I don't know, lead me, but I was thinking about a story my mom had also told me around that time. And she said, and she would be telling it to other people. She really didn't talk me through what she was sharing with other people about me, but it was sort of in passing. And I'm not sure what the moral of her story was or the point that she was trying to make, but I think as you were talking again, I thought of something. And the story was that I was they wanted to put me in the gifted program, or I was up for a gifted program. And my mother would say, they picked, she was asked something about being a gifted program, but then they chose a little boy instead. And I don't know, just to be transparent, and this is not about that, but I don't know if it was, and they chose a white boy. But my mother, our family didn't grow up with carrying that, that comparison wasn't in our house. That the reality of that stuff around, I'm 60, the reality of that was not discussed in our house. You know what I mean? It wasn't an issue, you can't do this because. But my mother was sharing the story. And so I think also too, this not quite, good enough. Even though, you were not chosen, and those things. So,
So do you want to ask the Lord about if there's, I'm thinking that you may already be feeling like maybe that is the lie that kind of settled in with those memories, but just to kind of ask them, Lord, is there a lie I believed?
Just ask them out loud
Yeah.
when you're ready.
Okay.
Sorry, microphone.
Open my eyes and wait. Lord, is there a is there a lie that I was led to believe? Is there a lie that I believe? Yeah. Is there a lie, Lord, that I believe that has lingered through the day? To this day? Yeah, I think it's probably just around maybe achieving the extraordinary. I've managed to do okay, but the extraordinary, which I also feel, I tend to feel a call to do the extraordinary, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? Because and at being kind of a pioneer type person, those are, you venture into areas that have not been forged before, and I've had some success in that. But I think that I feel like some of the other things I can't quite get there. But in my mind, the vision is very clear to do it, and the call to do it is there. But the wherewithal to get it done is not there. And so, so to me, as you were asking the question, or I asked the Lord, the question was almost like a combination of things around. And it was a muddling of reasons why. It wasn't really a clear, like you had maybe you're not good enough, but I don't necessarily, I feel valued by the Lord. So that doesn't hold sway as much as maybe all the reasons. I
It's
don't
more
know
just
yet.
this, sometimes it's like,
It's like a haze.
it's just in that little area. It's kind of like you believe, the Lord values you, but maybe in that memory, there's just this little piece that part needs to still get into that place.
Maybe like to really excel in areas. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it was really important to excel, which when I was a kid, all my big cousins were in college and stuff, so there was this push to excel.
Yeah.
But,
So do you feel like that kind of fits, is that you don't have what it takes to excel? Like when you think of that kind of exchange when you were young?
yeah. But excel is like to excel to actually be on top, to be the top. And not that you want to be the top, but you want to, if there's a feat, you want to do it with excellence. If there's a challenge before you, you want to do it with excellence and succeed at that. You set your mind to do it, you do it. And so there's been some things like maybe not finishing the task that I set out to do. Like start a women's magazine. It's been 18 years since I had the idea. So not finishing those extraordinary tasks with respect to calling and ministry.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add? Because we're just going to have her ask the Lord about the truth. Okay. So let's just ask the Lord if He wants to speak something. Just say, Lord, what's the truth about how you see my abilities?
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
It's really good. So do you feel like when you think back, you want to just kind of think about that memory when you were in first grade, think kind of about when that teacher said that to you and the words and what his face looked like. I guess I'm thinking about you praying and just saying, I come out of agreement with the lie.
I come out of agreement with the lie.
Do you want me to help you with the words of?
Oh, I need to pray.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I come out of agreement with the lie
It's
that you don't have what it takes, or I
It
don't.
sounds redundant, but I have to do it alone. I think that's what it is. I think it's not about me wanting to be better than anybody. I just want to be what God has me,
Mhm.
what He wants for me. You know, I want to complete the assignment. It's not about, and I would often say, I'm not competitive. I don't need to be better than you. Like, that's not a need for me. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to be as good as I need to be. But the Lord is, and this is something He says, I can do all things through Christ, which goes back to that story. He was with me then in order for me to achieve what's set before me. He wants me to lean on Him. Because I would probably be really horrible if I only felt like I could accomplish it on my own. And I think He has worked in a sense of just interdependence. He wants me to be dependent on Him. So that lie is that when I get to,
You feel like you have to do it alone.
I know I don't have to do it alone intellectually, but I think I move as though I do.
Yeah. So let's just finish with like thinking about that memory and what it felt like in first grade when you felt like that kind of settled in. I need to do it alone. And let's just ask the Lord about where He was in that place. So just say, Lord,
Where were you that day?
Just kind of think about that memory and just say, where were you, Yeshua?
Cool.
In that
Share
when
my
that teacher spoke to me.
Yeah. Yeah, he was right there by the teacher. He was by the teacher, and he was ushering me, and he was smiling. He didn't care if I was good enough or not. I don't think the Lord cared. I think he was just like, if I felt it, he wanted to celebrate it.
Just that you weren't alone when that was communicated to you. So what do you think He's saying to you with His smile?
I don't know. I think it's not even about the performance. I think it's about you don't have to. So what? You know, this has nothing to do with how, like, I'm not apart from you. Like, you're still with me. I don't push back if you can't do something. I don't look at you askance if you can't do it, because that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I think. So I feel like it's just this. I think it's just this acceptance without respect to performance, which we know that. And, you know.
Yeah. That's really good.
So when you sat down, I just had a picture of like almost the molecular processes of you being knit together in the womb. And the scripture that came to me was, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. So I think it's just, the Lord had a lot of joy in your hair that day. He loved your hair bouncing up there with your grade A math test and how happy you were, and He was with you and is with you because you're His and you're like a work of art to Him.
You know, the interesting thing is the strings that are happening is like even when I was in university and I had this big red coat. And so I think what it is maybe in some ways, which is sort of weird to be talking about this openly, but when you, but I feel this is my family, but it's like sometimes we all have these extraordinary parts of us that, and in growing up in the Midwest, you're not better than anybody, and even, you know, so there's two stories. One, I was freshman in university and I had this beautiful red coat that I just loved, and it wasn't even new. I think somebody gave it to me. and I was walking, and one of the girls, you know, across the yard yelled like, "Ew, tone it down, you know?" And I'm like, I mean, like, why? Like, and even that day I wore my hair in that natural, nobody was, you know, I had long hair, so the natural was like this, you know, there wasn't even like, I'll use this word, I wasn't even kinky enough to really like lock in, my curl pattern wasn't tight enough, so it was kind of like, and it probably looked goofy, but my mother let me go that day to class with it like that, and I felt pretty like, hey, I'm doing something different, you know? And I think innovators have to step out there and do stuff different. And then, and it was another story, but I forgot, but it's this notion of the minute you start to be, you're not all that. And then I found a comfort when I was a career counselor, an admissions counselor, and one of the parents had told me, she says, well, you know what I tell my daughter? She says, I'm not better than anybody and nobody's better than me. And so I think in some ways that was a consolation to me, right? Because I knew I have no desire to be better than anybody else. Really, I don't. But then why do I sometimes feel like I have these ideas to do something different? And in some cases, the Lord will say, I need you to step out here and do something extraordinary for my kingdom. And as long as I'm in the Lord, I know that I'm no valuable. But sometimes, if Edison never thought, well, nobody's better than me and I'm not better than anybody else, so this whole light bulb idea is probably not that big of a deal. What if, do you understand what I'm saying? So for me, it could be, there's a lot tied to it, because when I think about things to accomplish, a lot of them are innovations. And sometimes they fall just as a pile of never got done.
So this is something you can come back to, like what he showed you about that he liked your hair, that he likes that when you're like, out there and being yourself, and that he was with you when you're feeling alone because there's something big you have to do. He's with you. And I was thinking about when you shared this, just about what your teacher's face communicated, not just his words. The face, I think, is bigger, and so the fact that Yeshua showed you his face smiling at you, I feel like he's wanting to really be with you in that. So Lord, I just thank you for Denise. I thank you that you're with her and that you love her hair on that day. And I just ask that she would take this little glimpse with her and feel connected to you when she feels that you're asking her to do something. Thanks for letting us pray for you and letting everyone be here. Did you want to share anything else? You good?
That was a really great example. Thanks for sharing, Denise. And most of the time when we're praying healing prayer for people, we want the Lord to tell them what he wants them to know. But sometimes the Lord says, it's okay, you can share it. So I just want to say to Denise, when your girlfriend said, tone it down, the Lord was saying, shine, girl, shine. So that's wrapping that part up. So we're on to skill level 3, forming bonds for 2. And most of these notes came from, actually they all came from The Lifeboat in Your Brain by Chris Corsi. It's a ebook. And I have in the beginning of the notes, I have the link for it if you want to go and read the whole thing. I usually think of notes as a resource. So you can find them on your page, and if you don't recognize anything from what I'm saying, I left lots of room so you can jot down what I'm saying. The thing that we need to know is that brain is primarily relational. And because of that, we experience joy through relationship. So in creating a bond of two, it's the starting place for creating relationship and building our capacity for joy. I have here, this part I will kind of go with the notes about characteristics of skill 3, of that bond of two. You are able to share and respect another's signals and limitations. And how many of you have asked for a drink and someone presented you with a fire hose? What happens? Well, I get wet because, you know, and I choke and I'm not really able to get a drink. So, and it's called being overwhelmed. So when you're talking to someone, you want to make sure you're not presenting them with a fire hose, because what happens is if they start to feel overwhelmed, they can't hear what you're saying. This is especially true in conflict. If they're overwhelmed, they cannot hear what you're saying. So you might as well just pause and do your, when I'm afraid, or you don't have to use that scripture, any scripture works. It's someone, I was at a training where the man who put the unit together was training us, and someone asked him, well, what's the significance of 4 times? And he said, it keeps your brain busy while you're doing this for your body. So the number isn't really what's important, it's the process. So if when you come to an overwhelming, what I'm saying is pause and let shalom come in, and then they might be able to hear what you're saying. Being in a secure bond of two, you're able to express your feelings and your words equally. In other words, each person is able to share how they're feeling without the other person feeling like they can't share. And I relate this growing up into early adulthood. I felt like a chameleon because I would take on the identity of whoever I was with, and I wasn't able to be myself. And of course, you know, some healing comes along, and then you find out that maybe who you are isn't so bad after all, and then you're able to reveal who you are. But an unhealthy relationship is one where one person has all the say, and the other person doesn't have any say. And the other aspect they put, characteristic of skill 3, is each person gets a chance to be on their own. You don't have to be together all the time. And that, I mean, that's true of husband and wife. There are things that I like to do that Stu does not like to do, and it's okay for him not to like to do it. He doesn't have to go shopping with me. I prefer he wouldn't. But it's that aspect of it's okay for them to have interests outside of your interests. That's a healthy relationship. So the results of practicing skill 3, they call it the formation of a mutual mind. And just a simple definition, I got this out of a book called Renovated by Jim Wilder. And a simple way to put this is when two minds tune their mind sight, which is another word for awareness of each other, it creates a state of mutual mind. And you can see this, like I have a friend visiting from California. Hi, Shelley. Say hi to her later because she's a very special person. And we have known each other for almost 40 years. And we've prayed together a lot. And when we're praying together, we don't need to say a word. I can look at her and I can know she's got something. Sometimes, you know, I have to encourage her to share it. And that works the same way. She's encouraged me many times, pushed me from the back. So that is having a mutual mind. And you kind of know what the other person is thinking or feeling or what. So they gave an example of this, and it was an activity of running together and passing ball. And of course I thought, football, what more is that? And the quote is, "The mind must sense our speed and intentions along with the speed and intentions of others and change our pace accordingly. For this coordinated action to work, the brain must be able to speed up and slow down the energy for each player so they move together." And they use nonverbal clues to do this. You can use verbal clues, but, well, immediately I thought Patrick Mahomes, and I remember watching the broadcasts and the after-game interviews, and they would say, like, to Travis Kelce, "How did you know that's where he was going to throw the ball?" I didn't. And how did Patrick know that when he threw the ball, someone would be there to catch it? He didn't yell, "Kelce is coming to you," because that would have learned the whole, the other team. But they had mutual mind. They practiced it, and they had mutual mind. Now, this is totally Marie opinion, and it's not in the book, it won't be in the notes. But I feel like that mutual mind broke down. And the last Super Bowl game, I feel the trauma of the traffic accident that happened beforehand broke down the mutual mind. Because and I've shared this before, if your capacity for joy is greater than the pain, if the joy is greater, then that's suffering. And if your capacity for joy is less than the pain, that is trauma. And what happens with trauma is we shut down. We kind of shared a little bit. What will happen is that either you won't remember, you'll have emotions, but you won't remember. You won't know why you're so depressed or excited or fearful. Or you'll have the memory, but you won't have the emotions, because your body can't handle both. And your brain knows you can't handle that right now. So in healing prayer, when the Lord is with you, then you can deal with the trauma. When He's with you, your joy level increases, and you can deal with the trauma. So whatever you need to know, he can deal with it, share the truth. Okay, that's about mutual mind. That's one of the results. One of the stories, I feel like if I share my experiences, it helps. It makes it easier to understand some of the principles. And as well, I'll just go through the benefits, or the feeling you're connected, understood, and valued, and the development of deep bonds with others, a true sense of security. As a child, my parents were first generation. Our family immigrated from Quebec, and French was their first language. So when the family got together, they would speak French, and I did not speak French. And there is a sense of kind of isolation and loneliness in that. And but I would learn to listen, even though I couldn't understand. And sometimes I could tell by their motions or their laughter, and I could know what story they were telling, because they would tell stories over and over again about each other, things that happened and stuff. So I began to kind of decode that way. And I remember being a little older, a teenager, and we went to visit some of my parents' good friends, and their first language was Italian. So Grandma Vicarelli did not speak English, and I did not speak Italian, but we were able to communicate. And by the time we said goodbye, she gave me a doily she crocheted. So it was kind of like there was a connection. And a few years later, probably a few years ago, I was remembering how that lonely, kind of isolated feeling, and I said, Lord, what was that about? And I remembered being a child and not being able to understand what the family was saying. And I said, Lord, what was that about? And then as as Sarah was teaching, it was what was the Lord's perspective. And the Lord said, Marie, that's how I trained you. To see beyond what you could hear. That's how I trained you to see the heart, and not just what a person was saying, but to see the heart. I trained you that way. And it was like, boy, that brought such peace. It's like, okay. And Marie, you're good at it. And that's another thing, you know, it's like, oh, okay, Lord. So it just causes you to go on. Okay, consequences of failing to establish a bond with two: loss of identity, lack of security, pain, isolation, rejection, grudges, fear, resentment, disconnectedness, and self-centeredness, selfishness, need to compete with others. It's a mouthful there, but it's not safe to be known is pretty much what that all kind of sums up. It's not safe to be known. And I remember being asked, and people will ask you, what's your favorite TV show? What's your favorite book? What's your favorite food? Things like that. And I paralyzed. I didn't have an answer. And it wasn't because I didn't have favorites. It was because I didn't want to be known. I didn't want my identity to be out there, to be judged, to be, for whatever reason. So as the Lord began healing process, I can tell you my favorite color is blue. I didn't have any trouble telling my favorite color. That was okay. My favorite number is 5. My favorite books, Little Women and Anne of Green Gables. And Anne of Green Gables was such an impact that our daughter Jacqueline Ann is Anne with an E. And with no connection and not knowing, our son and daughter-in-law named their daughter Anne Lauren, Anne with an E, because she loved Anne of Green Gables. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. I like relative race, and I like home improvement shows, and I really like the 911 shows. So, from Emergency, when I was younger, when it came on, some of the situations I don't care for, but so there you go. So we talk about beeps because that's one of the things that consequence of failing to establish that skill too. Beeps are a substitute for healthy joy. So the term beeps, it's one of those, I think they call it acronyms. B stands for behaviors, events, experiences, people, and substances. And behaviors can be included. They gave examples, and there are more than this, but this will give you an idea. Like a behavior would be work. If you're a workaholic, you are substituting work for your worth rather than connecting with someone else. Can be, it doesn't have to be, but that's one of them. Events, thrill seeking. And our daughter's a thrill seeker. Stu and I were at Worlds of Fun years ago, and there's this ride that, it's like a swing bungee thing where you pull it back and let it go, and we've looked at that, and both of us, there's no way, no. And, but I thought, but I bet Jackie would do it. Well, evidently she'd done it 3 times, so that was that thrill seeker. That's one of the reasons why she's a RN and works in the ER, because it's different every day. So there are positive things, but there can also be, if it's a substitute, if thrill seeking is a substitute for our relationships with the Lord and with others, it does not satisfy. Experiences, they gave the example sex, anything that substitutes for true connecting, true relationship. People or relationships, talking about codependent relationships, unhealthy relationships. If you're the bully, like in Mary Lee's story. Your relationships with people are not, you're trying to fill a need in you by telling everybody what to do. That it doesn't work. Substances would be alcohol, drug, chocolate, ice cream, sugar, yes. They promise relief, but they make life unmanageable. And you know what happens with a drug thing, you take it once, you feel good, you take it again and you have to take more. And you have to have more and more because you don't get the same level of contentment or, high. So it's not a true, it's a pseudo joy. And then we go on the, make sure I put numbers on my pages, that they're not the same as yours. Some of these you can kind of read and I highlighted this one because skill 3 glues us to the person who loves, feeds, comforts, and protects us. So who's the first person we bond with? Mom. And that's the basis, that's the foundation. Our identity expands with the introduction of each new joyful relationship. Attunement, recovery, and face-to-face interaction with others builds our character, heals our wounds, and increases our maturity. Which kind of jumps us in, even though it's skill 5, we're going to skill 5 now, because it jumps us in. I love the phrase, and I can't remember where I heard it, but someone was teaching, and so mom holds baby. Baby's born, mom holds baby. And at some point, dad comes and lifts baby out of mom's arms. And they make 3. And it's not that dad's not there from the beginning, and bonding occurs, but it's that baby is more focused on mom in the first, where it gives the list here. They say in the first 6 months, baby is more focused on mom. But then baby begins to take interest in dad, and the transition is successful if mom is present, which is really interesting. I remember a story that my dad used to tell, and it was the first time that I was left with my dad, and my mom went shopping or something. I don't know where she was. And as soon as she walked out the door, I started to cry. And he bounced me, and he held me, and he fed me, and he changed my diaper, and he held me some more, and I cried. And it was time to go pick up my mom. So he put me in the car seat, and he drove to go pick up my mom, and I fell asleep on the way there. So she gets in the car, and she says, "Oh, Marie was a good little girl for you." So, evidently, with mom not being there, I didn't make that transition in that particular time, but since then, it worked out fine. So then it goes from 7 months to 3 years. Babies and toddlers identify themselves as part of a family. 2 people become 3, and this family bond will shape their lives. And what happens is, as other children come along, then they develop the sense that there's enough love for all of us. That it's okay if another one enters the family, because there's enough love. Mom and dad have enough love for all of us. Which then kind of shoots you into, let's see, that was page 6, where it becomes children shift from family identity to community identity, who they are in the community. And that principle about there's enough love for all of us, at the same time I was preparing these notes for the class. Make sure I have it in here. I need to borrow from someone. Here it is. As I was preparing the notes for the class, I ran into a bunch of old papers I had where I had written things, and And this one was actually from September 26, 1990, so it was a ways back. And that principle was in this thing that I've written, so I brought it in the interest of sharing my identity and the things I love and the things I do. I brought it to read to you. And it's written in the person of the bridegroom king. And there's a question, is there a balm of Gilead on the earth? And his answer is yes, for my beloved dwells there. Her tears of repentance are as a healing ointment, soothing the nail prints in my hands and on my feet. She comforts me with her devotion. Her face is radiant at the thought of my presence. My desire is to be with her. She reaches out her hand to the poor and lonely, and I draw them into the circle of our love. There is enough love between my beloved and I to draw in the whole earth. And I went, well, that sounds familiar. So that's the part that I'll go ahead and finish it. Her tenderness and passion will cause the fire between us to burn brightly, burning away every impurity. She will stand before me with no shame. She will know that she is desired and that her desire will be fulfilled. We will delight in one another, comforting each other. The joy of expectation is upon her now as she prepares herself and her body for my coming. In her heart is heard the constant refrain, come, Yeshua, come. I did edit the Yeshua part, I put that in. So that's part of how life changed since 1990. Okay, the results of poor skill 5 development. We feel alone at work, church, and within group settings. We feel threatened to relate with more than one person. We're comfortable one-on-one, so level 3 is the skill 3, not level. Skill 3 is the one-on-one thing, so we've gotten that one. But if we're become anxious when a third person enters the group, we don't have skill 5 yet. And that's, part of that is being confident in who you are. When we have relationship, then the world is safer, feels safer. Okay, we may be guarded during gatherings and parties. Fear of rejection and anxiety may surface when we interact with other people, which is kind of why we shut down. Computers, television, books, and video games feel safer. And the reason for this, it's like with computers and television and books and things like that, it seems like it's calming. And I've seen this used as a thing for calming people, just specifically someone with anxiety, and part of their calming was to go to their room where they had video games and things. And the sad thing is that it's the pseudo. It's the pseudo joy, and there's no relationship in playing a video game. Even if you're playing with someone else, the focus isn't in building relationship with the person, but with what you're doing in the game. So, and that's kind of fresh with me, so that's why I made a point of it now. Having one friend feels better than 2 or 3. That tells you need to work on your bonding with, forming bonds with 3. And when I say 3, it's 3 or more. And it starts, the thing is, like it says, it starts with every child requires joyful 3-way bonds between a mother and a father. Some people don't have that, but that's where the Lord comes in. Because He is Father, He is Comforter, He has the characteristics of Mom, with Comforter, with Teacher. So He comes in and He fills up the gap. And there is healing with that. That's our hope, that even with these things, when they happen, God has made a way to redeem them. And when I pray with people, the thing even thinking about my kids, it's like, Lord, what if this happens, or this has happened? And the Lord reminds me, the way I healed you, I can heal them. And that there is a recompension from the things that happen. There's something put in your box that is something you can draw on. You gain everything that's been stolen, you gain back. The Lord gives back more. So that's the hope with these. They give a couple of examples of things that you can do to create better bonds, and one of them, spiritual family and surrounding community. So when you come to congregation, that's the start. When you're doing a small group, that's an even better place to find healing. That's where you connect. Then you find out, okay, it's okay with these 6 people in my small group. Maybe if a new one comes in, I can handle that. And that's the joy that comes. So that's one way. We can grow, nurture, and develop a secure attachment with another person that provides strength and confidence to explore and strengthen a group bond. And that's kind of all in what I just shared. We can be delightfully surprised to discover how the addition of people into our network grows rather than drains joy. The other thing they talk about is what we demonstrated today. Sometimes you need healing. When he talks about the Emmanuel process, that's what we did with presenting Yeshua. That's the Emmanuel process, where the Lord can give you the truth. And it really does. When the Lord gives you truth, it changes your lives. You start to believe it. That's why I'm here today. That's why I share today. Because the Lord gave me the truth that I had something to share. And I better share it. So, no, he didn't put that part in. I did. He said he'd be with me. He didn't say I'd be good. He just said he'd be with me.
You're good.
So at this point, I'm finished.
I just wanted to say we have a handout, or not a handout, a piece of paper in the back that if you wanted to sign up to have handouts emailed to you or some of the videos we've done, just sign up back there. And then I just wanted to show you guys this. I don't know if we mentioned this, but this is an ebook, The Lifeboat in Your Brain by Chris Corsi, and it's a lot of Jim Wilder's material. Some of the skills that we talked about today are from here, so I just wanted to help make that connection. We taught skill 2, 3, and 5, and the handouts we gave you guys today also had another skill. We didn't have time for it because we didn't know if we were going to do that live ministry or not, so we kind of planned to do more teaching, but we couldn't do both. So you'll see, like at the end of your handouts, there's skill 4. We didn't talk about that today. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I just wanted to say, so these brain skills that we're talking about, I just wanted to encourage you guys that our brains are elastic and there's an elasticity and we can learn new things. And so if there's areas we feel like, wow, I'm not very good at this, returning to joy or soothing myself, when we're in the presence of the Lord, our brain, like we're making new pathways in our brain because we're connecting with Him and that's changing our brain and we're learning these skills. But we're also, when we're in community and we're in small group together and we're greeting each other at Shabbat service and we're appreciating one another and we're listening to one another, these things like really matter. And some of these areas that we're weak on, it's like growing a muscle. It's like I may feel distressed and not know how to connect to the Lord, but like that muscle can get better and it can get bigger. And so I just want to encourage you guys that these are skills that I think our community is really growing in. And it's because we like each other and we're happy to be together. So I just wanted to end with that encouragement. Thanks for coming today. We appreciate you guys.